Now that our car has health, there's something quite fun that we can do with it that's in a lot of games, which is we can make it smoke based on how much health it's got. And we're going to do that with particles. Before we start, so that I can see what this smoke looks like from a few different points of view, I'm going to click on this View button and change to 3 viewports. Then I can click on my chase camera and tick Preview in this viewport. I can click on my dash camera and tick Preview in that viewport, and now even when I'm fiddling around with other parts of the car, I'll be able to see what the smoke looks like in a normal game and looking through the dash camera as well, so I can tell if I've done a good job of making the smoke. Now for the fun bit, we're going to add some GPU particles, like you might have done to make the explosion. GPU particles 3D, and let's rename this smoke. I'm going to need to set 2 things on my GPU particles. I'm going to set my draw passes object to just a sphere. 1 by 1 meter sphere will do for now, and then I'm going to create a process material, new particle process material, and I start to see heaps of copies of that sphere spawning from the middle of my car. We want our smoke to spawn from the bonnet, so I'm going to move that up a bit into the center of the bonnet, and this is what will become our smoke. Of course, it doesn't look much like smoke yet. First, we should change the material of our draw pass object. So I'll click on that and add a new material. And I'm going to want this material to be transparent. So I'm going to open the transparency section and change transparency from disabled to alpha, so that when I go to the albedo section, I can make this grey, but not just grey, it's also going to be half transparent. I can drag down that transparent slider, and because I've ticked transparency to alpha instead of disabled, it should work nicely and I should get a transparent bit of smoke appearing in my game. The next thing, of course, is that smoke doesn't travel downwards, it travels upwards. So all the rest of these settings are going to be in the particle process material itself. I'm going to click that. I'm going to go to the accelerations section and I can apply some forces to my particles. First one is going to be gravity. Instead of having normal gravity pulling all these particles downwards, I'm going to have upwards gravity, just a small one, about 3, sort of a third of the force of normal gravity. It's already starting to look a little bit like smoke, but it's rising pretty quickly, so the other force I'm going to apply is some damping, just a damping of 1. That's going to slow them down a little bit so they rise a little bit more like smoke. Then they're rising really regularly, which I don't particularly want. So there is a thing that I can turn on in the particle processor settings called turbulence, and that's going to sort of push them around as if there's imaginary wind in my scene. The turbulence does seem to have shrunk them all a little bit at the moment, so as well as turbulence, I'm going to give them a starting velocity. All the starting values are in this section called spawn. I'm going to go to velocity, and first thing I'm going to do is make sure that it can start in any direction. So I'm going to drag up this spread slider all the way to 180 and then set the initial velocity just to 1. Doesn't need a different max and min. It's going to start in any random direction now. And already that's looking like fantastic smoke. It's going in any random direction. It's being affected by the wind, but they are massive balls of smoke and they're coming right out of the middle of the bonnet. So while I'm in this spawn section, the other thing I'm going to change is their positioning. Just like we did with our explosion, we're not going to have them all emitting out of a single point. I'm going to click on this emission shape drop down and change them to emitting out of a ring shape. I can pull this ring around a bit, make it face roughly where the bonnet is, and then just resize it. Change the ring height, doesn't need to be very big. Change the ring radius, looks like it could be a little bit smaller to fit my bonnet, and change the ring inner radius so that instead of having them all spawn in the middle, they'll spawn really close to the edge of that ring. You can see the shape of that emission ring there, and I'll just position it nicely so that it looks like all these particles are coming out around the edge of my bonnet, which they would do if they were a bit smaller. When they're that big, it's a bit hard to tell that they're coming out of the ring. So my next step is to go to the display section. Here's display, and change the scale. And again, I can have a bit of a random scale for this one, a different minimum and maximum. Minimum could be, say, 0.1, maximum could be 0.3, and just like what happened with our explosion, when we make them this small, we need a whole bunch more of them, but it's okay because it wasn't looking much like smoke anyway. So let's go all the way back to the very, very top, and instead of only emitting 8 per second, let's try 50. Even 50 doesn't look much like smoke, it looks kind of like bubbles. So we're going to go all the way up this time to 500, and then we get a really smoky car. It's looking quite a lot like smoke. In fact, when there's this much of it, I feel like it's perhaps being affected too much by the wind. So I'm going to go back to the turbulence section and change the turbulence scale down from 9, which is really quite big, to around 1 or 2. 1 or 2 means the size of the turbulence is going to be a similar size to my particles. They feel much more turbulent now, but they also don't sort of run away and move so far as they were when the speed was 9. That's about as good as we can get if we've just got a bunch of smoke balls of the exact same color, but we can also get the particles to change color over time. But before we're able to get them to change color, we have to go back to the material in my pass 1 and tick another box. This box here, vertex color, use as albedo. Basically, all that this means for us is that we're able to change the albedo from the particle process material. So by ticking that option, it just makes me able to change the color. Now I can go back to the particle process material, and somewhere among these many settings there should be some color curves. So I could have a color that affects all of my particles now. If I've turned on use vertex as albedo, that means I can drag this slider to get smoke of any color I like, which is quite cool in and of itself. But what I'm going to do is use a color ramp, which means I can create a gradient. Gradient texture 1D. I'll click on that gradient. Then I have to click the gradient box inside color ramp, and I can change the color that my particles are at the start and the color that they are at the end. You might already be able to tell that there's a bit of a gradient on these particles. They're black at the start and, well, they're multiplied by white at the end, so they're still the kind of grey colour. What I'm going to do is make them completely fade out at the end by clicking on the white colour stop and choosing a different colour for the end of my gradient. In fact, it'll be the same colour, the white colour, but it's going to be completely 100% transparent. Then I'm going to go to the starting colour stop, and I might make that black one about halfway transparent as well, somewhere like there. So I start with a somewhat transparent black colour, and I go to completely faded out white colour. Now that's looking like pretty impressive smoke to me. You can see what it will look like if you are looking through the dash camera, and you can see what it'll look like if you're driving along behind the car. It's all looking pretty nice. Let's try this out now. Of course, it's smoking all the time. We haven't done anything about health, but that's what I want it to be looking like when I'm almost completely lost all of the health. Going to enter the car. It plays pretty nicely. Now, a problem I saw on my cheap school computer that I'm not really seeing on this computer is that a lot of those particles went straight through the car. I think they're a bit better at being transparent on my computer, so I'm not seeing that so much. But if you notice a whole bunch of particles fly through the middle of your car and you want to fix that, there is another particles node, which I'll add now to my smoke node, and that's called GPU particles collision. In fact, there's a whole bunch of different collision shapes we can use. I'm going to select GPU's particles collision box, and that comes in at the same angle as I put my smoke at, so I'm just going to reposition that a bit. And this collision box is anywhere where you don't want the particles to go. So although you can't see much of it on this computer anyway, it might look a bit uglier on your school computer unless you add this particles collision box. That's going to let me tell the particles not to collide with my car. This will only work if I go back to the GPU particles process material, and at the very bottom there's a collision option that I have to change from disabled to rigid. So Again, I don't know if we'll be able to really spot any difference on this computer, but now the particles are going over the roof of the car instead of going through the middle of them. That's some pretty awesome looking smoke. Now we just need to do something in our script that means that that smoke gets heavier and heavier based on how much health we've lost. And the property we want to change to affect that, it's not the amount, because amount can only go down to 1. If I try to hit amount of 0, it just stays at 1. And also, anytime you change the amount, the whole particle system kind of restarts. So you see all these little juddery things happening if you try to change the amount. That's why they've added this other value of amount ratio. And the little pop-up that comes up when you hover over amount ratio tells you exactly this. It says this is the one that you can change through code if you want to change how many particles are emitting. So let's go to our car script. Let's grab a reference to this smoke GPU particles. All the way up the top of the car script, I'm going to drag in smoke, hold down control to get a copy of smoke. And then at the top of my process function, where I'm checking all these other health things, we can just have one line of code where I set the smoke amount ratio. And I want a number that's going to be 1 when I've got full health and 0 when I've got no health left. So it'll be similar to health over 100, because I've got 100 health when I'm at max health, but that will be backwards. That will be 0 when that'll be 1 when I've got full health and 0 when I've got no health. I want it to be the other way around, so that I'm emitting 1 full amount of smoke ratio when I've got no health, and I'm emitting 1 minus 1 amount of smoke when I've got full health. To test this out, I'm going to add a little bit more lava to my scene, just some lava that I can reach a bit more easily with my car. Find a lava in the tree, Control D, make another block of lava somewhere that my car can reach. And just so the car doesn't instantly die to the lava, I'm just temporarily going to change the burn damage I take per second from 50 down to 10. This is just for testing, and I'll change it back when we're done. Let's try this out. I've still got a burning car, so I should probably make sure that when I start the game, before I've entered my car script, I set this amount ratio down to 0. So it will start at 0, and it only changes to higher than 0 once I start losing health in that car. Now it's 0 particles emitting at the start. I'll enter the car, and now that I've lost just a little bit of health, I've got just a little bit of smoke coming out of the car. Now as I lose a little bit more health, oh thanks, the mine helped me out a little there. Losing a little bit more health, and more smoke is coming out of my car. Down to half health, got a very smoky car. I'm down to 30 health, and I've got a very, very smoky car. And then when I die, the whole level resets. Get a very smoky car until everything goes back to the start. So that's my cool smoking health system working in Godot.